Sansei, Oki everyone, and hello. Welcome to another fabulous Tuesday. I have been smoldering in the sun, so I'm a little bit of a space cadet today, but it was good. I was teaching all day. It was so good to be able to tell the Dreamcatcher story again and share Dreamcatchers with kids. I would have brought one of my Dreamcatchers to the show, but they're totally in the car. I just kind of like booked it from the car straight into the house and ate as fast as I could. But yeah, happy Tuesday. It's kind of an interesting week. There's a lot of, hubbub going on. A lot of people like, do we send our kids back to school? Do we not? I think it's important for the social aspect, but health-wise, there's a lot of strains on the system. So it's going to be a really interesting few weeks coming up. But I just pray that everybody is safe and that everybody takes care of each other and that we're just kind and we don't get crazy and, stockpile toilet paper again. So, but Tansei, Oki, welcome, Bozu. I just wanted to, of course, start by acknowledging the land upon which we stand, because if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going. So I am here in Treaty 7 territory. This is the home of the Blackfoot, of Siksika, Kainai, and Pagani, the Sarsi from Tupuna, and the Stoney Nakoda from Worley, which includes Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Westley First Nations. We're also walking in the footsteps of Métis Region 3, which is why usually I proudly wear my Métis sash to act as that bridge between Indigenous and non-Indigenous culture. But it was really hot and sweaty, so I took that off today. But it's just been a very, very toasty day. But I think it's really important to be able to acknowledge where we are, just to give us a sense of place and a sense of purpose, and to acknowledge the families that have been here for thousands upon thousands of generations, and the teachings that they hold, the teachings and the stories that are steeped into this land. It reminds us of the relationship that we have to maintain with each other and with the land itself. But also the relationship and the responsibility that we have to acknowledge and honor the past so we don't make the same mistakes again, but also to honor those future generations moving forward so we make better decisions for them, because we're just borrowing this world from them. This isn't our world, that's their world. And so it's really, really important that we live in a good way and we acknowledge that when we make decisions. And so just to welcome everybody into the circle today, I wanted to share the Cree welcome song. I forgot to introduce myself. That's terrible. See, like I said, lots of sun today. I'm a little bit out to lunch. So I'm Chantal. I'm Cree, Anishinaabe, and Métis from Muskegee Cree Nation, which is in Treaty 6 territory. And so even though I'm a visitor to this land, it's my home. Mohimstis has been my home for so many years, and I always feel comfortable, and like forces brought me here for a reason. So I'm very, very thankful to be here, and I'm very humbled. And I think it's really important to live in gratitude every year, every day, every day of the year, every year. But just to welcome everyone in, I'd like to share the Cree welcome song. Now, traditionally when we sing songs, we sing in rounds of 4, down to the 4 directions of the medicine wheel. But this song is a little different. We sing it in rounds of 3, and that's to keep the circle open and welcoming so everyone completes the circle today. Because in the circle, we're all connected. There's no beginning, there's no end. No one is greater or less than anyone else in the circle, just like in the hoop of life. So it teaches us to really honor each other for those differences, because that's truly what makes our community resilient. It's what makes everybody amazing, is we all have something different to learn from each other and to bring to the table. And when we're able to really focus on the things that make us who we are and really make us thrive and make us happy and give us a sense of purpose, that's when we see that love permeate through the world. We see, those actions speak louder than words. And so I'm very thankful to be able to share this song. This is from the Nutaha family from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. So I honor that family for keeping this song alive and for keeping this story alive. And so, yeah, I'll sing it. So welcome to the circle. This is Miyasin, the Cree welcome song, which doesn't just mean welcome, it also means beautiful. Miyasin, Miyasin, Hasenina, Hasenina, Etakote, Wagomaga, Mota, Moma, Kitaskino, Miyasin, Miyasin, Semina, epetakote, wagomaga, hota, woma, kitaskino, miasen, miasen, Semina, Semina, epetakote, wagomaga, hota, woma, kitaskino. Hi, welcome to the circle, everybody. So just to start, I wanted to start by sharing the bird song that I wrote. So this has been kind of going through my head, probably because there's a lot of birds in my backyard. Every time we fill the bird feeder, there's tons of birds in the backyard. But they have this brilliant and beautiful way of communicating. And so when this song came through me, it was about acknowledging the way that we speak to each other through our different communities. And so even though magpie might be a little different in the way it communicates than a robin or than a sparrow, they still have ways of communicating with each other. But it's also that debrief that they do at the end of the day. If anybody has a bird tree anywhere near them, that's that hub that all of the birds go to at the end of the day to just chat about their day, and to really communicate and honor the community that they share. So even though they're not with each other every waking moment, they come back together at the end of the day to debrief and talk about their day. And they acknowledge and they respect each other, all of those birds. And what's really, really incredible about some of those birds is they actually mourn for those that they have lost. And so it teaches us that even a member that there might be, hundreds of different birds in these flocks, they mourn for their members, just like we mourn for our members. It teaches us about that sense of community and that sense of connection, but also that sense of honoring not only our own voices, but each other's voices. It's a community bird song. And when it came through me, I always hear the blue jay when I sing these songs, and when I'm on the right path, I tend to hear the blue jay. And she is incredible. The blue jay just guides all of those animals. She leads the way. She warns if something's wrong, whether it be weather or whether it be a cat walking down the back alley. They will warn us. And they also take care of other species of birds who have lost their mom. So if there's a bird that has lost its parents, the blue jay will actually go and it will mimic the voice of those birds and make sure that they feed their young until they're able to kind of survive on their own, which is really incredible. But I think it really lends itself to how we as people do that. We take care of each other. We take care of, our families and our communities, but also our friends and families. We step in when we're needed, and I think that's really what we need to appreciate. We need to appreciate each other's voices and each other's energies and each other's spirits, and that's what this song really honors and represents. And so this is the community bird song. Or the blue jay song, depending. Way away, away, go. 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 away, away, oh. Way away, away, oh. She was good. London-eater.
I love you.
I love you too, Punk. So I was telling my dream catcher story today at camp. And I was really thinking about how I've only shared it when I've taught how to make dream catchers. And I think it's a really beautiful and important story. And I think like half the story is really out there, but not the whole story. And everybody has a different story. Everybody has different teachings behind the dream catcher, depending. And so when I share my teachings, I can only share what I know. But before we get started, before I share it, let's smudge. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off my earrings so that I'm playing before Creator. And you may see in my background here, I have our Smudge Bowl going. So the Smudge Bowl itself has all 4 directions in it. I have a really tickly nose today. I'm pretty sure I inhaled the bug. All right, so in the Smudge Bowl itself, we have the bowl, which is the shell, which is water, so it represents the woman. It's what holds everything in it. We have all 4 elements represented. So water, when we put the medicine in the bowl, no matter what medicine we're using, as soon as it goes in the bowl, it represents earth. When we let it on fire, with our lovely matches here, that represents fire. And then when that smoke comes up to Creator, that represents air, which is spirit. It's our connection to spirit. So fire is our mind, because that's what fuels our, intellect. It's what fuels our learning. The water is sage, which is our heart medicine. Our emotions are liquid, so of course it's connected to water. It's that sense of community and connection, and it teaches us how to honor our emotions and honor our tears, because without we wouldn't be here. The smoke, of course, being Creator's medicine. That's our prayers. It's the air that we breathe, because without it, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be able to breathe. And then the fire, I already said fire, the earth, that's our physical body. It's what connects us to this world. And we need to have that balance of all of those things together in one being, because that's what makes us strong. That's what makes us healthy. And, that's what helps us to heal and move forward and learn in a good way, but also be an active and strong member of our community with, honoring and adhering to all those teachings. So, that being said, I just realized that I don't have any matches. So, one sec. Because this box is empty. I thought I had another box. Not just in here. Oh, hey, Lindonator. Can pass me my purse?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Where don't think I have another pack of matches in my purse.
There's your purse.
Awesome. It's right there, baby.
Oh, I found it.
So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the medicines before we get started. So, the first medicine that we have in the East, and like I said, these are my teachings. So, if they make sense to you, awesome. If they don't, that's okay too. This is why we have oral traditions and oral storytelling. Whatever's meant for us, we'll remember. Whatever's not, won't take up space in our brain. There won't be a test. You'll be okay. So in the East, on my medicine wheel, I have speak rats. That's our mind. That's our childhood. That's the springtime. And that teaches us to really honor the power of fire, honor grandfather sun. So that's that masculine energy in the East. We go to the South, and that is cedar. Cedar is our physical body. It's our connection to this physical earth. It teaches us how to honor all of the plants and the animals. The trees are our oldest living ancestor, and we breathe with them. It teaches us about that reciprocal relationship that we have with nature, and how to always give something back before we take it. Also with our own bodies, we have to be able to nurture our bodies. If we don't have any food, we're going to burn out. If we don't have, if we're not taking care of our bodies, our physical bodies, then everything else kind of suffers and gets left behind. And so it teaches us how to honor our bodies. That's part of that circle. The next medicine we have is sage, and that's in the west. That's the women's medicine. That's our connection to water. It's our connection to Grandmother Moon, and Grandmother Moon cycles the tides. So that's where that water comes in. Also, women, we cycle in 28 days, just like the moon. So that's where that female connection comes in. It's really about honoring that intuitive and emotional nature that we all have within us and the relationships that we maintain because of that balance of masculine and feminine. And then the last medicine is tobacco, which is a sacred medicine. We gift it to each other to say thank you from our spirit to someone else's spirit. We put it on the ground to whether it be honoring Mother Earth or honoring the plants that we are taking without disturbing the roots. We always leave the roots of a plant in the ground. But also, if we're praying for someone and they're in our thoughts, we can sprinkle the tobacco on the ground and pray for them that way, because it's just that way of putting our prayers into a physical form. And that's what tobacco is. And so even though I'm not using all of the medicines today, I'm only using sage. I always leave all of the medicines out because it's really, really important to do that, to be able to acknowledge the balance that's within us and all around us. So we have, of course, the four directions: the east, the south, the west, and then the north. We have the four elements: fire, earth, water, air. We have the 4 times of the year. So we have the spring, the summer, the fall, and then the winter. But also it's the times of our lives, our childhood, our adolescent, our adulthood, and then our elderly years. And it's even like the times of the day. So everything is broken up into rounds of 4. And 4 is a very important and strong number. I'm going to bring this up here so I can light it. I've already pre-balled my smudge. This is just sage today, the women's medicine. You can use it no matter what. And those are just my teachings. Yeah, so I'm going to light that. I tend to always use matches and not lighters very often, just because you want it as close to natural as possible. So unless you're rocking a flint and steel, matches are the next best thing. But if you are really desperate and all you have is a lighter, then you can. But I tend to opt for matches whenever I can. This is why I stockpile them in different places around my house and in my purse and in my car. It's a good thing to have. Like the basics: tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, cedar, and matches. I'm just lighting the base of the sage ball here. There's no right or wrong way to smudge. This is just our way to heal and feel better and let things go. Make sure you are never blowing on it with your breath, because your breath is your life and your life is precious, and we don't waste that for anybody. But we're going to fan it with our hand. If you have a feather, feathers don't last because I have cats, so my hand is just as good. I mean, sometimes I get pretty scratched up, so I guess my hand's not as good, but yeah, we gotta love them.
Yes.
So now that I have the smudge going, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to clean my hands in it. So anything that I'm carrying, I get rid of. And like I said, there's no right or wrong way to smudge. It's whatever feels good to you. Wherever you need that smudge, wherever you need that smoke, wherever you need those prayers, that's where you bring them. And so my kids often will just bring it over themselves, their mind, their heart, their spirit, which is in their belly button, and then over themselves again, and then like, thanks, or bye, mom, or whatever. But it's just really important to ask for those things in your life that you need. And to bless those parts of your being. I'm going to do a long smudge for myself. I bring it over my body 4 times to honor the 4 directions of myself. I smudge my mind so I can be open to hear all of the messages that Creator sends me, and so that I can have an open mind. Smudge my ears so I can be open to hear all of the messages Creator sends me. I smudge my eyes so I can see all of the beauty that surrounds me and appreciate my vision as well. I smudge my nose so I can smell danger and cookies. I smudge my mouth so I can speak true and kind words that are helpful and benefit mankind. I smudge my throat. I'm very thankful for my voice this lifetime, so I can continue to give voice to the voiceless and also speak up for myself. Smudge my lungs so I breathe good, clean air. And I smudge a little extra. When it's really hot outside, dusty, my asthma bugs me a little bit. Same in the winter. When it's really cold, my asthma bugs me. I'm going to smudge my heart so I can be kind and compassionate and show unconditional love to all of those around me, to strangers, friends, family, but also so I can be gentle and truly love myself in a deep way. Let's smudge my stomach so all of the food that I eat this day will nourish my body. I eat very quickly, so I'm hoping that I digest pretty reasonably. And then I smudge my womanhood because I'm very thankful to be a woman and a mother in this time. Smudge my shoulders and my back so I can carry all of the responsibilities that creators give to me with grace and humility. I smudge my arms and my hands so I can continue to do the good work that creators put me here to do. Also, I'm very thankful to be an artist, so I always smudge my hands a little extra. I smudge my legs so I can walk this red road in a good way. And I smudge my feet so I stay grounded and connected to Mother Earth and tread lightly upon her, honoring her with every step. And then if there's anywhere in your body that you need a little extra love, so my hips are killing me today, so I'm going to smudge my hips a lot. They have been popping out a joint on the one side, so it looks like I might have to go for more surgery, but we'll figure it out. We're going to smudge in the meantime, because those wait lists are crazy. If there's anyone in your life that you want to send love and appreciation to, or maybe they're going through a hard time and you want to pray for them, or send that prayer to them, you just hold them in your heart. And you send that intention to them, that love, that gentleness, that kindness, and that compassion. You can smudge babies or people who can't smudge for themselves, or even pets, you can smudge them too. And then whenever you're done, you just say hi, or magwitch, or merci, or gracia, or shishie, or dunkashane, however you say thank you in your language, because your language is important. Even if you haven't learned it since growing up, I've only started learning my language very recently. I've started to learn a little bit of Korean, a little bit of Anishinaabe. I want to learn more. I need better mentors to be able to do that, but it's important because that's part of who we are. I think it's really important to reclaim that. And so when you're done, okay, and I am going to share one more song, and then I'm going to share the Dreamcatcher story. It's a long one, but it's awesome. So first I'm going to share the Thunderbird song. Because this is an Anishinaabe story, and this is an Anishinaabe song. It's been in my head all day. I was singing it with kids today. So this is the Anishinaabe Thunderbird song, which means we're on the right path, that everything happens for a reason, and never to doubt that. Which will begin the story. Story now. I'm sure like many people have seen dream catchers because it's probably one of the most appropriated symbols in Indigenous culture. And so when I share this, this is just one version of the story. I think it's really important to learn many different versions from many different people, from many different cultures, that carry the same symbolism, but also different teachings behind the symbolism. So my teaching comes from a story, and a long, 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 long time ago, before dream catchers were a thing, before any of our teachings or ceremonies or anything were a thing, there was a group, a family, and a nation, a tribe of Ojibwe, Anishinaabe people, and as they were walking along, they would stop, and they set up a village because they were just so tired from not being able to sleep. And the reason they were not able to sleep is because there was a little boy in the village, and every night he would have the most horrible nightmares. He would scream and scream and scream and cry and cry and cry, and these blood-curdling screams would just ring out for miles and miles and miles around because his dreams were so, so terrifying. And because of this, of course, nobody was sleeping. So everybody was just getting more and more and more exhausted as the weeks went on and they turned into months. And because his screaming was so, so loud and it would just reverberate everywhere, all of the animals for miles around just cleared out. They were terrified of the sound, and so they ran further and further and further out. And so the hunters had to go further and further and further away to find game until finally they just couldn't find game for miles around. And even plants need to sleep, even plants need to rest. And so the plants, they weren't able to rest either. So they started to shrivel up and die for miles around. Pretty much the only plants that you could find were the ones that were sheltered from that sound, the ones that lived underground. So things like the carrots and the potatoes and the beets and any of the tubers that lived underground. And so this is pretty much what that nation had to survive on. And, it started to get really old really quickly. So the little boy, his Nokomis, his grandmother, would take him walking every day. She figured maybe the further the walk, the more exhausted he would be, and perhaps the screaming and the bad dreams would stop. And so she would take him further and further and further out every day. And then when they would come back at the end of the day, of course, he would be exhausted. He would curl up and just get ready to go to sleep. And then as soon as his dreams hit, he would scream and scream and scream and cry and cry and cry and keep everyone awake until one day his Nokomis woke up. That's a really funny way of putting it. She never slept either. So no one really slept. Everybody was starting to get really hangry too, because if you don't eat a lot and you don't sleep a lot, you get pretty hangry. So everybody was really starting to be beside themselves. And so this day in particular, Nokomis just had a feeling, and she's like, let's take a different path today. And so she took her grandson and they started walking down, and they came around a corner into a clearing in the forest. And there was this beautiful, huge spider's web. And with the dew on it, it almost looked like glittering, sparkling diamonds in the beautiful webbing right before the sunlight had evaporated all of those beautiful crystals of water. And the little boy, who was feeling pretty hangry, he saw the huge, beautiful jeweled spider, and he thought, I'm going to kill it. So he grabbed his moccasin and he went to squish the spider. And his grandmother, his Nokomis, said, no, grandson. That spider is sacred. That spider has been protecting us from some of those really mean mosquitoes and those bugs that carry diseases and cause us harm. We have to be thankful for that spider because it takes care of us, and we need to take care of it. And then, as they started to walk away, the spider said, "Thank you, Nokomis, for saving my life." And Nokomis said, "Oh my gosh, a talking spider." No, I'm just kidding. That's not what she said. She said, "Well, you're welcome, actually." Because, of course, I know that I would hope that somebody would show me the same kindness. And the spider looked at her and said, "Nokomis, because you have shown such kindness, I think now is the time for me and some of my friends to share teachings with your nation. Nokomis, tomorrow, come and see me again. But tonight, there will be a huge, huge storm. The wind will blow, the rain will come down, there will be hail, and it will knock loose many, many, many willow branches. So on your path to come and see me tomorrow, Nokomis, gather up all of the willow branches that are on the ground, any that you can find, and bring them to me." And Nokomis did as she was said. As she was told. So she went back home with her little guy, and she tucked her grandson in bed, and hoping that because they had walked for quite some time, that maybe he would get some sleep. And sure enough, as soon as his eyes closed, He screamed and screamed and screamed and cried and cried and cried and kept the whole nation awake. The next morning, Nokomis stretched and she was exhausted, but she knew she had a mission to do, so she packed her grandson up, they packed up lunch, and they started walking along their path. And as they continued to walk along, and the storm from that night before left just stuff everywhere. And so Nokomis did as she was told, and she gathered all of these beautiful willow branches that she had found on the ground. She was never quite sure what to do with these willow branches. Sometimes they would make baskets with them. Sometimes they would do all sorts of things. But for these ones, she wasn't sure what the spider had intended. And so she brought all that she could find in this big bushel back to Ektome. And as Ektome explained how to weave all of those beautiful branches into a hoop, she explained that this hoop is the strongest shape in the universe. It is the shape of everything around us. It is the moon, it is the sun, it is our planet, it is everything that spins, and it continues to teach us. That circle is a circle of life, and everything within it is balanced, is equal, is even. Nothing is greater or less than anything else in the circle, in the hoop of life. Just like within our own communities, within our own circles, nobody's greater or less than. Everyone takes care of each other. Even the two-leggeds, which is us, and the four-leggeds, which are the animals, the crawlers, which are the bugs, the swimmers, which are the fish, and the flyers, which are those beautiful winged ones. We all are together in this circle, and we make each other strong. Even without one portion, it wouldn't be a circle anymore. We need to take care and maintain everything in that circle. Nokomis was so thankful and so humbled by these teachings and that circle that she had created and the weaving that she had created. And she thanked Ektome, that beautiful spider. And Ektome said, "So tomorrow, Nokomis, you will come and see me again. But I would like you to take many different directions to get here. Walk by the ocean, walk down the stream, down the riverbed, walk through the forest and across the prairie field, and you will find many, many different gifts just laying there. So whatever catches your eye, pick up." And so Nokomis the next day, of course, did as she was told. But of course that night, little guy screamed and screamed and screamed and cried and cried and cried and didn't sleep. So she was still pretty exhausted. So as she took her grandson walking the next morning, they walked down along the ocean, and they found beautiful little gems and rocks and shells, tons of tiny little shells, things that had she not been looking down, had she not been paying attention, she would have missed completely. And as she picked them up, she could feel and hear different stories coming to her. She could think of different people, those emotions and those things that had happened to her across her path, but also stories that her grandparents had shared with her, that her great-grandparents had shared with her, that other people in the nation had shared with each other. She remembered vividly every time she would pick up a stone or a gem or a shell. And she continued to walk along the riverbank, and the same thing happened. There was these beautiful gifts all around her, surrounding her, and she would have missed them completely had she not been paying attention. And she picked up more. Then she continued walking through the forest and the prairie, finding all of these beautiful gifts and being filled with wonderful memories, somewhat not so wonderful memories, but of people in particular, and the help that they needed and the love that she had for them. And by the time she got back to Ektome, the spider, her hands were full of beautiful glittering gems and shells and rocks and stones and stories that they all contained. And then she asked Ektome, "Now what? Now what should we do?" And Ektome gave her a single thread of silk, very, very long, and showed Nokomis how to weave just like that spider's web in a spiral, slowly but surely getting into the center. And with each time she would weave, Ektome showed her how to tie in one of those gems or rocks or stones along that net. And as she did, she was thinking of those beautiful people, those stories, those experiences, and everything that she had shared along her path. It was almost like her life unfolding in front of her with all of these beautiful gifts. And as she finished, she was just overcome by the beauty of this webbing, this spiral netting that she had created. And Ektome said to her, "This is the web of life. We are a single strand in the web of life. But every single experience, every person, every gift that we have, it makes us stronger. Those experiences that we have, whether they be good or they be bad, they make us who we are, and that is our path. And we can't take one of those things away, or we will not be the same people. And remember, we can never, ever go backwards. We can only move forward. And so it's important to live in gratitude for those lessons that we've learned. The strong ones, the hard ones, the fun ones, and the not so fun ones. Nokomis was so humbled by these beautiful teachings and the stories that she had remembered, and the people that she had remembered from these gifts. And she thanked the spider for allowing her to see the world as the gift that it was, to see all of these beautiful rocks and gems and stones and shells as the stories and the gifts that they are. And Ektomi said, tomorrow, Nokomis, you will not come and see me right away. You will go to the east with the rising sun, and there will be a guide there for you to teach you many things that you will bring back and share with your nation. Then you will head to the south as the sun rises at its highest point in the sky until your shadow disappears. And then you will head to the west as the sun decides to set. And then, Nokomis, you will head home, rest, and then head north on the fourth day. After that guide is finished with you, you will come and see me. Nokomis said thank you very much to Ektomi the spider for all of the wonderful teachings. And she began to make her way home with her little guy. And so her grandson, of course, was just exhausted. She had to pretty much carry him most of the way because it had been a very, very long journey and a very long day. And that night she hoped and prayed that maybe he would get a good night's sleep because he was pretty worn out. And so she tucked him in nice and tight, tiptoed out. But then, of course, the moment his head hit the pillow and his eyes closed, he screamed and screamed and screamed and cried and cried and cried because the nightmares were just overwhelming. And so no one in the village again slept that night. Everybody was getting even more exhausted and more hungry. So lots of hunger was happening. And Ektomi packed him up the next day, first thing in the morning before the sun had even started to rise. And they began their journey to the east as the sun was rising slowly in the sky. As she got further out to the east, she was in this beautiful prairie clearing, and then she heard an unmistakable. As she looked up, she saw a beautiful hawk circling above her, and he came lower and lower and lower and said, Nokomis, I've been waiting for you. I have all of these wonderful teachings that Creator's gifted me to share with you and your nation. As I share these teachings, you will know exactly who to share them with. And so the beautiful hawk gifted her with all of the teachings of fire, the way to carry the fire medicine and the fire that we cook with and pray with. He gave her this beautiful braid of sweetgrass and explained how it represents our mind, our decisions, and our ancestors moving forward. He explained all of the teachings of children's ceremonies and all of the fire and male ceremonies. And as he taught her all of these things, she knew exactly who was supposed to carry those ceremonies. It just came through her, and she knew exactly who to appoint those ceremonies to and who to appoint those stories to and all of these songs to. And so when the beautiful hawk was finished, he said, now, Nokomis, you must head to the south because there was another guide waiting for you. And he started to soar away. And as he did, he dropped a single feather and it started to circle on the breeze. And as it did, Nokomis reached up, caught it, and held it to her heart. So thankful for all of the teachings that she had learned and that she was going to share with her people. And then she started to walk to the south. At this time, her and her grandson were getting a little hungry, and it was starting to get really, really warm. And they saw this beautiful tree just all by itself in the middle of nowhere. Wonderful cedar tree with tons and tons of coverage. And so they thought, well, let's go have lunch there, because now our shadows are disappearing beneath our feet. And so they got to the tree, they laid out this beautiful blanket, and they sat down to eat their lunch together. And all of a sudden they started to hear laughter, and they wondered, where is this laughter coming from? And they heard it again. They thought, well, that's a pretty funny sound. And then they heard it again. And sure enough, it was the raven. The raven hopped down in front of them and said, Nokomis, I've been waiting for you. I have so many wonderful teachings and songs and stories and hilarious jokes. Would you like to hear a Cree joke? And Nokomis said, sure. And the raven said, well, how do you cook Cree grandparent potatoes? And Nokomis said, how? And the raven responded, well, first you cook them, then you mush them. So Nokomis thought it was pretty cheesy and bad and very fantastic, but she acknowledged the wonderful joke that the raven had told her. And then the raven shared all of these wonderful stories and all of these wonderful songs with her, taught her all about the different medicines, and she knew exactly who was supposed to carry which medicine bundles and which medicine teachings. And she thanked the raven for all of these beautiful teachings. The raven shared with her how all of the animals will give themselves if we ask permission. He also shared with her how to honor all of the plants and all of the wisdom that the animals will share with us. She was so humbled and so thankful for all of the stories and the songs and the teachings, and she knew who she was passing them on to. And then the raven said, now I gotta go. And so he started to take off, and as he did, he dropped a single feather, which spun on the breeze. And as it came lower and lower, Nokomis caught it, held it to her heart, so thankful for the teachings that she had learned, and began to move forward to the west while the sun was setting. As they moved further and further and further west, her grandson and Nokomis, they came to a beautiful clearing in a forest as the beautiful moon started to rise up and lit everything in the forest with this beautiful glowing white light as the pinkness of that beautiful sunset faded. And Nokomis looked around. She wondered where her next guide was. And then very silently, something brushed the side of her face. And she looked again and said, what was that? She didn't hear anything. And then she felt another soft wind pass her. And she looked around and she couldn't see anything again. And then silently something landed in front of her. And then she heard, woohoo, woohoo. Nokomis, it is I, the owl. I'm so thankful that you are here because I have so many teachings to share with you. Teachings of water and the water carriers and water bearers. Teachings of women's medicine, of the moon medicine, and those different wonderful ceremonies that we will carry forward. But also teachings, women's teachings, women's songs, and women's stories. And so Nokomis listened for what seemed like hours, and she was so overcome with joy and emotion and sadness, but beautiful, beautiful feelings just kept pouring out of her, and she didn't know why, but she was overcome and she was crying. And she tried to apologize for her tears. And the owl said, don't apologize for your tears. Those are sacred. Those are part of our ceremony. And she shared the lovely teachings of the tear ceremony and the healing nature of it. When the beautiful owl was done sharing all of these teachings, all of these songs, all of these stories, Nokomis knew exactly where those teachings were going to go. And she thanked the owl for being so generous with all of those teachings. The owl said, now, Nokomis, you must head home, but head north tomorrow morning. You will meet the last guide. And so, without a sound, the beautiful owl took off and dropped a single feather circled on the breeze. And so Nokomis caught it, held it to her heart, very thankful for these new teachings, and started to head home. Her grandson was spent. He was pretty exhausted, so she carried him all the way home. And even though he was exhausted, he wasn't falling asleep because he knew his dreams would scare him. And by the time he got home, she tucked him in to his little cot and hoped that with all of the activity and all of the traveling today, that maybe he would sleep. And his head hit the pillow, his eyes closed. And then he cried and cried and cried and screamed and screamed and screamed because his nightmares were awful. The next morning, Nokomis yawned, she stretched, and she packed up her grandson again, and they started to head north. As they got further and further north, they saw those beautiful mountains guiding them, and they felt that cold, crisp wind hit them. They were very, very thankful. Sorry. And then Nokomis looked up at the clear blue crystal sky, and she saw a tiny speck. And it was soaring in a circle. And it got lower and lower and lower until it was the call of the eagle. And the eagle landed right in front of Nokomis. And he said, Nokomis, I am so thankful that you've made it to this point. I have so many wonderful teachings to share with you. Teachings of spirit, different ways to pray, different ways to honor our elders and our deceased, but also that we can dance and honor those traditional teachings. And so for what seemed like hours, the eagle shared so many teachings. And as he did, Nokomis knew exactly who was going to carry those teachings forward. At the end, Nokomis was so overcome and so thankful. And the eagle explained to her gratitude is the way that we honor each other and the world around us. Nokomis again said thank you. And then the eagle reached and plucked a single feather and gifted it to Nokomis. And he said, Nokomis, this is my feather and it is sacred. I only give it to people who have accomplished something very great, who have done something for their people, or their family, or for their future generations. It's our way to honor and respect our accomplishments. And still to this day, we use eagle feathers to honor accomplishments. When we see a chief with a beautiful headdress of eagle feathers, he's carrying all of the hope and dreams, and he represents his people with each and every one of those feathers. And so it is a sacred gift to be able to carry those forward in a meaningful way. When we see all of our beautiful dancers with those feathers, it is the way that they connect to Creator. It is our direct connection to Creator. For eagle feathers, our spirit. Nokomis was so thankful and overwhelmed with all of the wonderful teachings. And she was so thankful for this beautiful feather and said, Eagle, thank you. Thank you for gifting me this. And the eagle said, now you must go and share all of these teachings with your nation and with the people who will carry them forward for your nation. Nokomis said, thank you again. And then the eagle said, now it is time for you to go and see Ektome again, where she has your final instruction. And then the eagle soared and really high up above until he was completely out of sight. Nokomis packed up her grandson and began to walk down back to the clearing where Ektome stayed. And when she got there, she saw the beautiful creation that she had begun, the beautiful willow hoop as it was drying in the sun, the beautiful weaving with the wonderful silk strand and the shimmering. It reminded her very much of when they first came into the clearing and they saw all of the dew sparkling in the spider's web. Now she had created the same thing, and she was just overcome by its beauty. And Ektome said, welcome back, Nokomis. I hope that my guides, my friends, and your friends have taught you much that you can share with your people. And again, Nokomis was so thankful. She said, of course, thank you so much. Then the spider said, now come forth, Nokomis. I will show you how to hang those beautiful teachings and those beautiful feathers within your hoop. And so sure enough, she taught Nokomis how to hang that hawk feather in the east. She was reminded of those teachings of the mind and those teachings of children, the teachings of fire and men's teachings, and exactly who she was to share those with, the songs and the stories that belonged there in that direction. Then she hung that beautiful raven feather in the south. That's up to ground us, to connect us with the beauty of Mother Earth, with all of the plants and animals around us, the stories and the songs, and of course some of the really bad jokes that the raven had shared. And then she took that beautiful owl feather and hung it in the west. She was remembering all of the emotions she was overcome with, the teachings of the water, the women's medicine, the connection to the community that we have, the ceremonies, the songs, and the stories that she would carry forward and give to many people in her nation to pass forward for many generations. And then she took that beautiful eagle feather out, about to put it on the top, when Ektome said, no, Nokomis, that eagle feather is your gift. That is your accomplishment for you were bringing this beautiful back to your nation, and you were bringing all of these teachings back to your nation. she was so overcome with emotion, and she said, "What is this beautiful thing we have created together, Ektome?" And Ektome explained that this is the dream catcher. It protects us when we are sleeping and when we are awake. It's our guide, but it also embodies all the teachings of the Anishinaabe people that we shall carry and move forward. And this beautiful dream catcher you will hang above your grandson's bed, and it will protect him from all of those dreams. When we look at the netting, all of those bad dreams and good dreams will slide through that netting, but good dreams will drip down those feathers to the dreamer below and help guide them in a good way. Any of the good dreams that do not make it down to the dreamer will soar on those birds' wings and go to Creator to accomplish what they need to accomplish. And those bad dreams, they are greedy. They will not let go of those beautiful, shiny, sparkly things in the webbing. And so, just like us, sometimes we need to let things go, or we'll be held behind, we'll get entangled in a web in our life. But because they won't be able to let things go, when the sun hits them in the morning, they will burn up, just like dew on a spider's web. Nokomis was so thankful for these beautiful teachings. She was so thankful for the beautiful dream catcher she created, and she brought all of these teachings back to her nation. She shared the ceremonies and the songs and the teachings and all of the stories with these wonderful, wonderful members of her nation who still carry them in their societies and their families today. And then she took that beautiful dream catcher and she put it above her grandson's bed and hoped and prayed that that night he would sleep. And she tucked him in, hoping and praying tonight would be the night that he slept. And he did. He slept so incredibly soundly. But not only him, everyone in their nation, everyone in the village slept so soundly. Nothing compared to this silence. It was a silence of absorbing wisdom and knowledge from Spirit. Everyone was so full of that Spirit and just learning and translating all of that information, that stillness and that silence. It was resonant. All of the plants who would shrivel up at night started to grow very, very tall and very, very quickly in this silence and lean forward to understand where this stillness and silence was coming from. Animals for miles and miles around had never heard this kind of stillness before. They knew it was a sacred stillness, and so they began to creep in to the village. And then in the morning, when everyone opened up their teepees and poked their heads out, they saw this abundance of plants and animals, and they remembered the teachings that were shared with them, the teachings of the raven about honoring those animals, asking permission, and honoring those plants and leaving the roots in the ground. And they feasted sustainably and honoring every aspect of the feast. And that little boy never had a nightmare again, but he grew up to be the strongest chief that that nation had ever seen. And that is the Dreamcatcher story. And so before I go, because that took a while, it's a long story, I wanted to share the traveling song. I think hopefully it'll come to me. So this is an Anishinaabe traveling song, and it just basically is our way of honoring the path that we're on. It helps guide people home and guide people where they need to be. And so when I'm reminded of that story, it's that guidance that each and every one of those spirits, those animal spirits, had gifted Nokomis, and Ektome had guided her on that journey. And that is that web of life, that we're a single strand and we touch so many different points. But it's not there. Those challenges are not there to bring us down. They're so that we can learn and grow, get stronger and move forward and grow. And so this is the Anishinaabe traveling song. And I think my elder, Sharon Turner, who had originally shared this song with me, and whenever I hear this song, I can hear her voice singing it. And I was also reminded of it when my friend Ashley and Yolanda came to do this beautiful production in Heard It Again, and it was like Sharon was right there beside me. right when I needed her the most. And so this is the Anishinaabe traveling song, and also our last song, because that was a very long story, and that went really, really quickly. So, Anishinaabe traveling. Hi, everyone. Have a safe week and have a safe journey. I love you all. Hi, and Shimugwech again. I'll see you next week. Hi.